Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The Taishu Academy's sword path elite, Yuan Chong? Someone among the crowd recognized Yuan Chang's unique skill at once. It was said that this person had achieved great feats with the sword a long time ago, but he had always kept a low profile. He could also be described as cunning and sinister. He usually hid in a corner before landing a powerful strike on his target. This was exactly what was happening now. Yuan Chang's eyes gleamed as he stared at little Yuan in the skies. Little Yuan was young and fearless. She immediately brought out her Nirvana sash and defended herself. Bam. 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 The energy swords struck the Nirvana sash. Yuan Chong had expected as much. He stepped on the Nirvana sash and advanced. Whiz. A 7-leaf avatar materialized in the air. The others exclaimed in shock. Yuan Chong is a 7-leaf cultivator. The Taishu Academy is really invested in this. They thought Jiang Lizzie was the most powerful elite the Taishu Academy had sent here. After all, when Jiang Lizzie was killed by the Palm Seal, nobody from the Taishu Academy stepped forward. Nobody expected there to be an elite hiding among them. Bam. 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 The energy swords and the Nirvana sash clashed. Little Yuan was only a 3-leaf cultivator. How could she go up against a 7-leaf elite? Yuan Chong unleashed a grand technique and appeared behind the little Yuan. Energy swords rained down. Little Yuan pushed Conk to the back, shielding Conk behind her. Sister Yuan. Conk cried out. Don't worry. Little Yuan cast her 7 stars cloud treading steps. She left after images in the air. Since she needed to carry Conk at the same time, this was almost at the limit of her capabilities. Die, little girl. The energy swords dispersed little Yuan's afterimages. The instant the afterimages disappeared, Yuan Chong struck with his palm. The palm seal struck little Yuan at lightning speed. Bam. Little Yuan reeled back as wind stirred in the surroundings. Her Dantian sea of qi was in chaos. Yuan Chong frowned slightly. He hovered in the air. You're still alive? Yuan Chong dove again. The energy swords broke free of the Nirvana sash and joined as one. He joined his palms together. I hope that you'll be reincarnated with a good life. The energy swords shot toward little Yuan again. Little Yuan thought she was about to die when a row of umbrellas spread out before her in an array. Energy spread and formed an umbrella-shaped wall. She looked up and saw a pretty and graceful lady descending from the sky before landing on 4 umbrellas. The thousands upon thousands of energy swords were blocked by the umbrellas. Sister Jingyi? The newcomer was none other than Li Jingyi. Li Jingyi gave little Yuan a sidelong glance and smiled. Are you all right? I'm alive and kicking. Little Yuan immediately flew to Konk's side. The sudden appearance of this elite attracted everyone's attention. Floating above the sunken floating island, Madame Huang registered a look of delight. Li Jingyi. Greetings, mistress. Mistress? Yuan Chong frowned and said, I heard that Huang Shiji had several disciples who are all elites. Unfortunately, Huang Shiji is tyrannical and couldn't win their hearts. Are you the genius umbrella cultivator, Li Jingyi? Li Jingyi pursed her lips into a smile. I didn't think I was this famous. Li Jingyi, Penglai Island's time is over. An outstanding talent should be able to follow the current trends. Huang Shiji wasn't kind to you. Why would you risk your life for him? Yuan Chong asked. A teacher for one day, a father forever. Yuan Chong, I advise you to give up. Yuan Chong laughed. Open your eyes and look. Who do you think is going to give up at this time? Li Jingyi surveyed her surroundings. The floating island was already submerged beneath the waves, and the formation had shattered. She saw chaos everywhere she looked. Many umbrella cultivators lay on the ground, unmoving. They were from the same sect, after all. How could she be unaffected? Alas, it seemed like she was too late. She did not expect the once glorious Penglai Island to be reduced to a piece of juicy meat that was being fought over a pack of ravenous wolves overnight. While Li Jingyi was lost in her thoughts, Yuan'er seized the opportunity to attack. He moved his hands and launched several energy swords. Li Jingyi stepped on the umbrellas as the umbrellas spun upward. She launched energy seals into the air. Their energies collided. Boom. Both opponents retreated at the same time. The competition of their energies was also a showdown of their cultivation bases. They were both 7-leaf elites and should be evenly matched. It was difficult for the sword and the umbrella to emerge superior over the other. Both opponents faced each other from a distance. Woo! A strange sound rang from the sea again, attracting everyone's attention. Kong pointed at the sea and exclaimed excitedly, "Luoyu is coming." It had the body of a fish and the wings of a bird. Its voice was like a mandarin duck. Splash! Luoyu broke the surface of the sea. Unlike the first time, it created huge waves that rippled outward. Whoosh! 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 Li Jingyi blocked it with her umbrellas. Yuan'er controlled his energy swords with his palms to block the splash from the water. Little Yuan shielded Kong as she looked at Luoyu in shock. Luoyu treated everyone above the sea's surface as its enemies. Why? Alas, the low-rank cultivators nearby were not as fortunate. Their chests were instantly pierced by the deadly water droplets. Holes could be seen on their bodies. This livestock can kill. The cultivators nearby quickly retreated. The umbrella cultivators from Penglai Island retreated as well. They stayed away and watched. Madame Huang flew up and looked down at Luoyu. At this moment, Luoyu did a complete turnaround in the air and flapped its wings. It was shrouded in a faint light. At this moment, it was diving toward Kong was standing near the sea's surface. Luoyu is going in for the kill. Stand back. This was their first time seeing Luoyu trying to kill someone. Li Jingyi frowned. There was a complicated look in her eyes. She turned to look at little Yuan. With a deep voice, she said, "Stand back." Oh. Little Yuan brought Kong with her and flew backward. Li Jingyi asked, "Where's your master?" Master? Little Yuan smacked her forehead. That's right. Where's my master? Master. Help. I won't last for much longer. The cultivators stared at the young girl, baffled. All of them grew alert, guarding against the expert who might suddenly show up to protect the young girl. Fortunately, no such expert showed up to help this young girl. At this moment, Luoyu moved between the young girls and the others. For some reason, it did not hurt the girls. It flicked its body, separating the two girls. Kong exclaimed in shock as she flew upward. The energy surrounding her was scattered by Luoyu. Luoyu's movements were nimble as it carried Kong away. Kong! Little Yuan exclaimed in shock. The situation was out of her control. Her master entrusted Kong's protection to her, but she had let him down. A panicked expression appeared on her face, stemming from her helplessness. It happened too quickly. Who could have reacted to it? Li Jingyi could not do anything even if she wanted to rescue Kong. Yuan'er kept his eyes on Li Jingyi as he kept her occupied. At the same time, he ordered, "Taishu Academy disciples, kill that young girl." Understood. The Taishu Academy disciples' voices were thunderously loud. 100 disciples from the Taishu Academy flew on their swords and shot toward the sea's surface at the same time. None of them cared about Luoyu or Kong. They were focused on their target, little Yuan. The 100 cultivators conjured up energy swords. The densely packed energy swords formed a mass of swords that flew toward little Yuan. Li Jingyi's heart sank. The young lady was in danger. At this moment. Whiz. A blue light shone from beneath the water's surface. The sea between the four islands was completely covered by the blue light. The members of the Taishu Academy did not even have time to react when they heard a splash. The floating island? The floating island broke the surface of the water, creating huge waves. The cultivators who were fighting intensely on the four islands were drawn by this scene. They stopped fighting and looked at the floating island. At this moment, they saw a dark blue palm seal huge enough to carry the entire floating island beneath the island. Everyone held their breaths. They looked at the massive palm seal that seemed to be able to cover the skies. For a time, they forgot about the battles they were engaged in. They forgot everything. The waves and the spreading blue energy struck the Taishu Academy disciples who were advancing toward Little Yuan. All of them were sent flying, spitting out mouthfuls of blood in the sky. Under the huge massive palm seal, one could see an old man who was the size of a leaf when seen from afar. The old man held his palm above his head. A blue light shone from his palm. It was obvious the massive blue palm seal came from him. His action of propping up the floating island was akin to directing the great rivers to flow east and returning the mighty waves. It was only natural for the others to be shocked. Zhou stared at the underside of the floating island as he concentrated on controlling the massive palm seal. His extraordinary power surging out of his body in an eye-catching manner. He saw the stunned expressions on everyone's faces as they looked at him. Many of them sat limply on the ground, trembling in fear. It seemed like they had given up on resisting. Zhou did not have the time to care about these people. He continued to hold the island up. Everyone was silent, in awe, as they watched this magnificent scene. Whiz. The huge palm seal carried the floating island and propped it up 100 meters above sea level. When the core island of Penglai Island returned to its position, a crisp sound rang in the air. It sounded grating and unearthly. Penglai Island's mistress could not suppress the joy that welled up in her heart after she regained her senses. Tears streamed down her face. At this moment, little Yuan had temporarily forgotten about Conk. She looked at her master who was carrying the island with one hand and murmured, "Master." 100 meters in the skies. Zhou's palm seal was still in position, but his extraordinary power was running out. He ignored everyone with a slight frown on his face. He had some extraordinary power left. Should he save some for himself or should he finish it? Rumble. The floating island shook. The palm seal shrank. When he saw this, Yuan Chong snapped out of his awe. He exclaimed in delight, "No risk, no gain. Who's with me?" Bam! Yuan Chong shot out like a fired arrow. The elites in the surroundings stirred. No risk, no gain. A handful of elites made their moves at the same time. The others resumed their deathly attacks against the Penglai Island's umbrella cultivators. They knew that one or the other had to die in this battle. In fact, many of them merely wished to fish in troubled waters. However, with many people doing this, there were, naturally, a few individuals who were willing to gamble with their lives. Moreover, a desperate person could easily spur others into action. Ma Qing looked at the extremely chaotic battlefield and shook his head. Madness, this is madness. Li Jingyi flew with her umbrella in hand. The umbrella in the air launched densely packed energy seals. This was a Penglai skill, the green bird. At this moment, about 5 cultivators summoned their avatars and charged toward the underside of the floating island. Wu. Luo Yu? Luo Yu rose among swirling waves that rose toward the floating island in a pillar of water. Conk was riding on Luo Yu's back, but she showed no signs of fear. She spurred Luo Yu along the water pillar as it flew upward. The moment she blew on her conch, Luo Yu spread its wings and released beams of light. The fish leaped above the floating island. The sun shone on the waves. A rainbow appeared above the floating island. It was an absolutely stunning sight. Showered in the light, Lu Zhou suddenly felt as though the scripts of the heavenly writing scrolls in his mind were activated. Interesting. Did Luoyu possess magical healing abilities? Was Luoyu obeying Kong's commands? In any case, this was certainly the will of the heavens. His extraordinary power was, with Luoyu's help, replenished. Lu Zhou's expression was calm as he continued to hold the island in place. Rise. The floating island returned to its original position. Lu Zhou lowered his arm and surveyed his surroundings. The first person he saw was Yuan'er. When Yuan'er was 10 meters away, Lu Zhou struck with his palm. The power of past lives. The Great Seal of Fearlessness. A massive palm seal that seemed to belong to Tathagata Buddha was launched. Yuan'er wanted to block it. He summoned his 7-leaf avatar. There was a collision of golden lights before the huge palm seal smashed onto his face. Impossible. He's really a 9. Bam. Before Yuan'er could finish his sentence, he exploded in midair. Ding. Killed a target. Reward, 1,500 merit points. Lu Zhou did not look at Yuan'er. He swept his gaze in several other directions. If holding up the island with a single hand could not intimidate these desperate cultivators, the only option was to kill them all. You want to die? I'll grant you your wishes. Madame Huang widened her eyes. She saw several palm seals flying in several directions. It was as though blue fireworks were exploding in the sky. When the palm seals disappeared, corpses dropped like flies from the sky into the sea. The seawater was stained red. Woo. Luoyu wanted to continue flying. Kong patted Luoyu and softly said, "Go home." Luoyu seemed incapable of flying anymore. It could not circle around the floating island any longer, nor could it help Lu Zhou restore his extraordinary power. It shifted its direction and dove. Lu Zhou raised his palm. He condensed his primal chi into energy that wrapped around Conch. When Conch was lifted away, Luoyu leaped into the air again, seemingly reluctant to part with her. It hovered in the air and looked at her. You'll be all right. Conch waved her hand. Woo. Luoyu opened its mouth. A beam of blue light emerged. The cultivators who saw this exclaimed in shock. The Lantian Jade. Lu Zhou raised his palm and pulled the Lantian Jade toward himself. Against the sunlight, the Lantian Jade released puffs of green smoke that resembled Luoyu's tears. The tears turned into pearls that dropped into the ocean as smoke rose from Lantian Mountain where jade was produced under the sun's warmth. It was rumored that the Lantian jade existed inside the belly of oceanic beasts, just like how rare pearls existed in clams. As Lu Zhou witnessed this, he allowed himself to be in awe of the world's wonders. Luoyu gave a final cry before it dove from the skies into the sea. It swam a few circles before it disappeared from sight. Whiz. Whiz. The radiance of a formation shone under the sea. It shone on Penglai Island. The 4 loosely arranged islands were shifted back to their rightful positions. The beams of the formation's light seemed to spin as they were reactivated. Clack. The unique sound of the formation being activated resounded across Penglai Island. The barrier was restored. After being washed by seawater, the buildings and plants on the floating island seemed exceptionally brighter. Against the setting sun, the gorging seawater spilled over the island's edges. The unique formation sent the seawater back to the floating island in a loop. The rainbow above the floating island and the rainbow from the waterfalls complemented each other in their brilliance. Penglai Island was back to normal. Everything seemed like a dream. At this moment, Li Jingyi suppressed the excitement in her heart as she looked at the 4 islands with the wax paper umbrella in her hand. She said in a clear voice, "The formation is completed. All Penglai Island disciples, take down all those who acted against us." Under the formation's energy, the other cultivators were suppressed. Even flying seemed extremely difficult. On the contrary, the combat strength of the umbrella-wielding Penglai disciples was boosted. The tides of the battle on the island turned. The Penglai Island disciples began their counterattacks. Madame Huang finally registered what was happening. She wiped her tears away. She bowed slightly toward Li Jingyi. Li Jingyi was taken aback. She hastily returned the gesture. That won't do, mistress. In any case, you saved Penglai. The person you should be thanking is Senior Ji, mistress. Li Jingyi looked at Lu Zhou, who was hovering under the floating island. Madame Huang said in shock, "You're really Senior Ji of the Evil Sky Pavilion?" Lu Zhou placed the Lantian jade in Kong's hand. He looked at Madame Huang and said, "In the flesh." No wonder, no wonder. Who could compete against a 9-leaf cultivator? Madame Huang bowed emotionally and said, "Penglai Island is forever grateful for your deeds." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "I've always been reasonable. I took your heavenly scroll and saved your floating island. Apples to apples. We're indebted to you, Senior Ji. We never could understand the Penglai heavenly scroll in the first place. If it could be used for a greater cause in your hands, Senior Ji, all the more reason for you to have it. In any case, Penglai Island shall erect a monument to remember your deeds, Senior Ji. It'll be consecrated daily." Erect a monument to remember his deeds and consecrate it daily? This seemed overboard. It sounded awkward as well. Only a dead person would have a monument that was consecrated, right? Lu Zhou looked at Madame Huang and said, "There's no need for that." Madame Huang had heard about how the Evil Sky Pavilion master was someone who rarely changed his mind. When she saw he was determined, she no longer said anything. At this moment, little Yuan's voice reached them. She flew to Lu Zhou's side, delighted. "Master." Lu Zhou nodded and asked, "Are you all right?" Little Yuan replied with a smile, "I'm fine." However, as soon as she spoke, her blood essence surged as blood trickled from the edge of her lips, and she nearly fell. "Sister Yuan." Lu Zhou extended his hand, his energy supporting little Yuan in the air. When Madame Huang saw this, she hastily said, "The floating island is completely wet. Please follow me to the eastern island." However, Lu Zhou shook his head and said, "Wait. Is there anything else, Senior Ji?" As he looked down at the 4 islands, he saw the cultivators who were still desperately struggling. He could hardly find any sympathy in his heart. After muttering to himself for a moment, he said, "Don't leave any survivors from the Taishu Academy." After a slight pause, he added, "I'll watch from here." Li Jingyi was inwardly shocked. However, she did not object. This time, they did not even have the chance to be captured as prisoners. They could not blame anyone else for their lots in life. She lowered her gaze and bowed slightly. "I'll get to it." After she said this, she dove. Her 7-leaf avatar dove as well. Her avatar swept through the low-ranked cultivators. For a time, there was a rain of blood.